they be safe and they can get what education offers, and they can also be mentored into responsible citizens. And finally, when I heard Pastor Edith say, "It is well," even in the midst of many challenges, it is well. And I am reminded of the words of Daniel 11:32 that says, "But those who know their God, they will be strong and they will do great."
Now, on road carnage, 13 people, including a 2-year-old child, were injured in an accident on the Chepsangor-Kopere Road in Tinderet constituency in Nandi County. In the accident involving a Nissan Matatu owned by Premium Sacco, which was headed to Kisii town from Kitale, the passengers suffered serious injuries to their bodies. It's alleged that the driver of the vehicle lost its brakes or control and crashed into a valley about 40 meters in the area of Chepsangor. Meanwhile, the body of the man who died after the car crash crashed into a river in Bomet in an accident that left 3 people dead has been retrieved from the river. It is said that the vehicle crashed into the flooded river.
Kulingana na ile gari ambapo sisi tumeenda kuiona kule chini, hiyo gari ni failure brakes ambapo ilikuwa imebeba watu 13. Watu wengi wameumia mkono, mguu, ile hali kuna mtoto mdogo ambaye ameumia kwa kichwa ambaye tulitoa wa mwisho kwa gari huko chini, lakini katika watu wote hakuna mtu amekufa, watu wote wako sawa, ni ile tu kuumia wameumia.
Ingefata Kipchumba Murkomen ungaangalia hata mahali kama hapa. Hii Chepsangor imetusumbua kwa muda.
Hiyo tungeliomba Murkomen kama waziri wetu na ni mtu wetu hapa nyumbani, angetusaidia kabisa kutujengea hata walls zile tunauliza serikali kuu namna ya kutufanyia katika hii mteremko wetu.
Vile sasa mvua ni mingi, maji ni mingi, kuokoa ikakuwa ngumu. So wazazi walipoteza maisha hivyo, na tunasema tu pole. Ile gap wamewacha ni kubwa sana, lakini tunaomba tu Mungu atuwezeshe tuweze kukamilisha. Tuko katika hiyo mpangilio ya mazishi.
But we had to come home immediately because of that, and we are going through a lot of challenges. We are trying to accept everything, and I have my brothers. We are supporting each other, the family, the extended family.
Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says he will push for the adoption of the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling formula to ensure equity and fairness in the allocation of funds to the counties. The Deputy President said the formula is critical for development in the Mount Kenya region, adding he was a leading proponent of the formula. He said this during the consecration of Assistant Bishop Dr. John Kimani Nthiga at ACK Cathedral of St. Peter's Mbeere Diocese in Siakago Town in Embu County. The second in command said the formula is a development agenda that must be pursued for the region to get an equitable share of the shareable allocation. He also said the region deserved a share of the equalization fund for the benefit of areas that deserved it for development.
Mambo ya revenue sharing formula, for the avoidance of doubt, it's good that in matters revenue sharing, Rigathi Gachagua, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, is a believer and a proponent of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. Resources are about people. The whole issue of resources is about people. The more you are, the more taxes you pay. And it goes without saying, the more taxes you pay, when it comes to sharing, you share more. And it's that way. And we have no apologies to make, because it cannot be a constituency like Roiro, ambaye iko na watu almost 800,000 inapewa similar amount ya CDF with a constituency iko na watu 14,000. Is that fair? We want fairness in sharing of revenue, and we'll be pushing that agenda. Not because we come from a region that has a high population, no, because it's the right thing to do. It is fairness. Let's be fair. And resources are about people. So that will be pushing that agenda. I agree on equalization fund. We do have some areas in this region like Mbere, like Atwanyaga in Thika, like Kieni in Nyeri, like Deyo in Kiambu, that literally are semi-arid and they have been forgotten. That is something we must work on.
All right, let's take a look at the newspapers and what is making headlines. So I'll kick it off with the Star, which forms basis of our conversation this morning. KRA to come after your M-Pesa bank accounts. KRA to come after your M-Pesa bank accounts. Now the taxman will have powers to compel banks, telcos to produce customer statements. In the finance bill, President William Ruto team moves to implement law likely to hit hard hustlers. Now, what exactly does this mean? Basically, there's a law that bars KRA from accessing the data of customers, that is in banks and financial services. But if this finance bill goes through and that particular clause is not amended, that means KRA will now have the mandate to actually go to a bank or a financial service and say, what, we need data of Cynthia and her financial services, how she has been transacting, how her bank account looks like. And if it does not match what you pay as you earn or your paye or the taxes that are basically you're supposed to pay, then that will mean there's a problem and KRA will have to come after you. So the taxman will have unfettered access to your M-Pesa and bank accounts in a new strategy to uncover tax cheats. Now, it will require amending the law to access new sources of revenue heretofore hidden and undeclared as the cash-needy government seeks more money and forgoes offered syndicated loans. Aside from that, there's also VAT on banking services. There's tax on forex transactions. There's also an eco levy that has been put up from 90 shillings or from 98 shillings to about 1,000 on an array of products like calculating machines, printing machines, even a section of diapers. So that means you're likely to see some diapers, costs go up. There's also VAT on bread, and there's a minimum of about 10 shillings per bread for a 400 gram. There's also removes relief on affordable housing. That means, your income tax is likely to change at the end of the first month when this particular bill will start coming into play. There's also a motorcycle duty up by 10%, so border riders will be affected by that. There's also mobile money transfer excise duty, up to by 5%. So as soon as you start transacting, if the bill passes without any amendments, then you're likely to see that the rate at which you send money or you transact your finances online is also going to go up, as well as your data, the internet and calls that you make is going to be expensive. So KRA to come after your M-Pesa and bank accounts. My guest in studio will be telling us a little bit about this from their point of view. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? At what cost shall the government look for this 323 billion shillings to cut on the budget deficit? Also, schools assess floods aftermath. A second term begins today. Initially, they were supposed to reopen was it on 2nd May? But that was postponed, yes, on 2nd May, but that was postponed to the week after, and then President William Ruto as well addressed the nation and postponed it a week further. So today, which is the 13th of May, they're expected to reopen across the country. And if you walk into town, or even from where you stay, you'll see students resuming to school for their second term, which is supposed to end on 2nd August, barring any additional weeks in the end. So that is the stamp. Also, D-Day for Linturi as MPs convened to decide his fate in the impeachment bid. However, word has it that Linturi is off the hook in the probe, and that is on the Daily Nation. So let's take a look at the Daily Nation, which speaks on MPs let Linturi off the hook in probe. Impeachment trial. A special committee of the National Assembly has cleared Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi of any wrongdoing in the scandal regarding the sale of fake fertilizer to farmers under the National Government Subsidy Program. A member of the committee who spoke to the nation claimed MPs were carefully selected to, quote-unquote, save Linturi. And so the impeachment motion had been overwhelmingly endorsed by 149 MPs against 36, and there was a 3-day trial period that was from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, where the committee was listening into submissions from the CS himself, as well as from the Member of Parliament, Wanami John Wamboka, who sponsored that particular motion to Parliament. However, word has it that he has been saved, as the committee saved Linturi's job in scandal over fake fertilizer. Now, the accountability Kenyans were looking for, it's a question on what happened, and is he the man responsible for the fake fertilizer distribution, or are there other hooks in the play? Now, that is something that we'll also be looking forward to as the 11-member committee tables that particular report in the floor of the National Assembly. To the Standard newspaper, gone with the floods. That is on the Standard, gone with the floods. Counting the cost as the raging waters subside, the toll they took on infrastructure is unimaginable. The loss of life and damage to property, the highest in recent times, and it will take a while before life gets back to normal. Now, 228 people have been killed due to the floods, 164 have been injured, 72 missing persons, 58 roads destroyed, at least 41,063 acres of crops have been affected, and about 9,856 livestock lost. So the damage is unimaginable. Even this morning as schools reopen, there are schools which will not reopen. As indicated by the CS for Education, Professor Ezekiel Machogu last week, he said there are schools in areas in Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Busia, like in Budalangi, which may not reopen because they are still flooded with water, or the infrastructure as well has been destroyed and has been swept away. Even in slum areas, we're likely to look at a situation where students will not really report to school today. Could be this infrastructure is there, but the student does not have school uniform, does not have books, or any personal effects for that matter, because they were swept away by floods. So gone with the floods, a dire situation in the country this morning. Also, speak out against new taxes. Karua rails at leaders. The opposition have said they will go back to the streets if these new taxes are imposed. Something that directly affects you includes the price on bread, diapers, as well as section of diapers. The prices are likely to go high up. Also, the border riders will be affected, and those who own cars as well will be affected. So we'll be taking an all-round look at that particular finance bill, what it has, what is being said and what is not being said exactly. So this is the headline on the Standard this morning. It's an acid test as MPs decide Linturi's fate today. Also, State 6 nod to spy on M-Pesa bank accounts. That is on the business page, still on the finance bill. Race for the English Premier League title Titans as Burnley drop the race at the top. Who will be crowned champion at the end of the season? Well, that is something that you should listen in to the scoreboard later on in the afternoon as they will be taking a look at all your weekend sporting action. However, that is the headlines on the Standard newspaper. The Star carry to come after your M-Pesa bank accounts, and on the Daily Nation, MPs let Linturi off the hook in probe. Those are your newspaper headlines this Monday morning. All right, so allow us to take a quick breather, but when we come back, my guests, Muito Mureithi and Willis Koye, will be joining me in studio as we take a look at an all-round conversation over the Finance Bill 2024, as well as the schools that are reopening this morning and the hurdles and challenges that they have faced so far, and just perhaps an improvement of communication from the government, for lack of a better word, as they communicated earlier in advance that schools will reopen this Monday morning. So are they prepared? Well, that conversation returns in a bit. Be part of it. Our SMS line is open to 23059. Talk to us across our social media platforms. The hashtag on X is hashtag morninglive@TV EBN. We'll be back shortly.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Morning Live. We're glad that you're here. We're about to get into the conversation this morning surrounding two key events that are happening today, or at least for the better part of this week. One, schools are reopening across the country, and then we'll also be taking a look at the Finance Bill 2024. What does it have? What are the contents of it? What does it not have? What is being said? What is not being said? How does it affect you as the common mwananchi? So that is something that we would love to hear your feedback on across our social media platforms on EBN TV. Our SMS line is open as 23059. Questions, thoughts, comments perhaps that you may have, would love to get that from you. However, let's kick it off with the schools reopening. They had been postponed twice. Initially, they were set to reopen on 2nd of May. The Ministry of Education communicated a bit later on in the night. Actually, it was 1 a.m. if I remember correctly, and said that they had postponed schools, and then a week later as well, President William Ruto postponed it indefinitely. But looking at the situation in the country and the weather updates, things seem to be back to normal, and that is why schools are reopening this morning. So let me introduce my guest in studio this morning to help us talk a bit more about this. I'm joined by Muito Mureithi, who is a political analyst and commentator. Thank you very much for coming, Muito.
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers.
Yes.
Well, I'm so grateful to be here today. Yesterday we had a wonderful time celebrating all mothers everywhere.
Yes, yes.
And it's a wonderful experience. Secondly, schools are reopening, as you have alluded. Today, they were supposed to be opened last week, but due to some inevitable circumstances, we could not go that direction. However, much as the government wants the schools to be reopened, the effects, the adverse effects, or that actually struck some of the schools has not been dealt with.
Yeah.
Noting that there are some states, the schools are not in a similar, state in terms of infrastructure, because there are some which are, I hear there is a school in Nyandarua that is made of, mud. There are other schools which are made of timber. I mean, the infrastructure is of timber, the others are stone. But even those which are well done and they were affected by the floods, there are people occupying those houses, those schools, and I'm talking about families. So it is not families as parents minus the children. So the children with their parents are actually affected. So if there is relocation to be done on the parents, you can see how much effect, negative effect is going to have on the families that are affected.
Yeah.
I think it was meant for the Minister for Education to be a lot more sensitive by doing a thorough research.
Yeah.
And I like what a former CS was doing, Matiang'i. He used to be on the ground himself. And he could go to the schools in deplorable states, and he could check and see whether it's a place habitable or not. And schools were upgraded around that time. And I think what our CS is doing currently, I think, is not really above par. And I think he should up his game because talking about going back to school can be a misadvice. Of course, it's a presidential directive, and the president takes guidance from the experts that sit with the ministers that he has allocated these responsibilities, who are supposed to have gone to the ground and done this thorough information, take pictures of those muddy schools, take pictures of those schools done with timber, where you know too well that if water spilled into, or rather flooded into the classrooms, mark you, we are under a private, a free primary education system right now, currently, which means most of the textbooks are not carried by our kids. And I don't think it occurred in the minds of any institution that let's put the cupboard somewhere near the ceiling. The cupboards are actually touching the ground. So which means there's some books that will not be usable. And there was not even time to salvage some that would be, dried up in the sun and maybe used before the government expends on the coming budget. I think, or even the emergency budget they could be having right now. I think those are the things that the CS would have gone into addressing before he gives the order of children going back to school. And giving a reason that, there's a school program, I don't know what, and timeline, to me, it made no sense. So when you take them to the floods and deaths happen, is that this time again you're going to call off the schools and apologize to the families that will have been affected? I don't want to feel, because I'm a parent, I know that where my kids go to school is not affected with floods because he's here in Nairobi and is not affected. But there are areas which are truly affected. And even right now, you go to Tana River, when you say you're running a whole ministry that has all children to sit under one examination, and you're telling some you don't have to go to school, you stay in the house, stay in the cold and hungry, and continue enjoying the displaced, condition. Then come the exam time where you have the NEC exams now with this new CBC curriculum, you expect them to perform. I think that would kind of feel like the government itself and our president, and I believe it's never too late even for the president to say, I think we need to check. Today, let me tell you, Nairobi is cloudy. We are very uncertain. We don't know whether it's going to rain in the course of the day. Unlike the weather that we experienced yesterday and the day before, that maybe led them to say, it's clear. I think we would have given it some time. Let CS Machogu do his homework right before we call for his resignation, because I think if he continues like this, I think he might just find the president finding a replacement very soon. But we're not happy about the decision.
Right,
some of us,
and you don't seem to be alone, because from what a lot of parents have been, saying, the initial postponement and the communication that was done at midnight, and he said he was only following directions from State House. He was waiting for that particular direction from State House. But it really has been about the response to how the flood situation has been like. He's said a couple of schools in select counties may not reopen, but he didn't give a definite answer and say, they should not reopen. It was sort of like a 50-50, they might reopen, they might not. And so a lot of parents from this region are still in the dark on whether or not to take their children to school, to still wait on the communication by the Ministry of Education that says, schools, select school X or Y should not take their children to school. So it has all about been the communication and the response to it.
Yeah. So what about the syllabus? That is what I'm saying. it is him who sits with the experts. Waiting for directives, the president cannot sit down to think, investigate, and make decisions on the transportation system under the Ministry of Transport. The energy, which is directly hit through the power supply and insurgencies that we are experiencing with the Kenya Power outage, power outage, even in our international airports, in our residential areas, we're experiencing these things. I think let the CS not blame the president. The president gives directives because he has the power to give the presidential directives with that authority after the guidance and advice that has been done by the people who have gone under the ground, to the ground. And that is where this cliche of the buck stops at someone who is at the top should end, because it is shifting blame from you. It's not me who made the decision at 1 p.m. You must have given him a report that, hey, it is clear, or we have confirmed that the rains cannot allow our kids to be, because you're the ones who advised the president. So how can he give you responsibility and then here again you want to shift the blame? And I believe the president has heard. If the CS is saying that he was waiting for a directive from the president, he must have advised the president correctly. And that is the responsibility of the ministry. And if the CS himself is not able to put his team together to advise him correctly, then I think something is amiss. And if the CS says so, and every other institution of learning comes out and brings out the images, in photos and videos, that this is how it is, what's the CS going to say? Because the media is out there waiting. The social media is out there ready to expose, because this is what is going to be running in our social media. Wait until the first drop comes down. Then you will see people running now to get this information fully, because the rains are still hanging in the skies. As I've said, we have the clouds in Nairobi, where we had dry sun, scorching sun yesterday and the day before yesterday. So it's not enough for us to make that kind of judgment. We had several months during Corona. I had a son who sat for his KCSE during that 6-month year duration, because it was just only 6 months in school. And they managed. What I'm trying to say is that it's not that we should subject them under such stress, but I think it is time the CS and his team of his elite group, because they are all learned. You can't be the Minister of Education if you're not learned. You must.
He's a professor.
Him is a professor.
Yeah, Professor Ezekiel Masho.
My goodness. Okay, thank you. Now, he has a team of other professors and other graduates. These are people who claim that they understand education better than those who are not. So can they advise the country adequately and do their scientific researches and go physically again to the ground and do their thorough research and come up with conclusive advice to the president so he can make right directives, right decisions? Because misguiding the president, it's very hard to subject the president now to apologize that, hey, we thought. He has the meteorological department, which maybe the CS education or the education ministry could have ignored because maybe Hidayah did not hit Mombasa and Dar es Salaam. So we think things have changed. But of course, we know that the rains and the floods, God is in control now, taking it to another dimension. And it might end or subside in the course of time. So our wish is that may these rains hold for a moment. If that be the case, that the children are now on their way, on their own, meeting areas where we have bridges that some of them are not in a state that is able to hold, the weight and in the rush of the vehicles that are going to, be passing through. So we're praying for safety, and we also pray for the Ministry of Transport to be on the lookout. It's not a time to chase matatus alone for the toll that they collect, especially NTSA or even the National Police Service, and I'm saying this without hiding. Recently we had an accident here at Jogoo Road in front of the eyes of police officers, because these guys pay 100 shillings or 50 shillings to break the law, and that law became fatal. So these are things I'm saying the ministry should sit down to address first the inside before they address the outside, because we need some morality also in these service providers, the police and the NTSA. They should be morally upright in this while delivering the service.
Right.
So they should look into it.
Yeah. And you know, Mwito, we've got about 32,469 primary schools across the country and about 10,502 secondary schools. However, not all schools will reopen, as I've mentioned earlier, because I'll take an instance for in the slums, like Mathare slums or in Mukuru, Kwanjenga, where, you know, there was water that flooded away with some of the infrastructure, houses, and students who have no books, have no school uniforms. They basically have no shelter, you know. They can't, they have nowhere to sleep, they have nowhere to get food, and so they're sitting and wondering, so schools are reopening, what are we supposed to do? And at this point in time, you know, what should the county government do? What should those who are responsible for the lives of these people to provide this basic you know, human needs to these people supposed to do? Where should these parents start from? Because you know, we've seen cases where parents are literally crying on camera and saying, you know, how am I supposed to take a child to school? The uniform was swept away, the books were swept away, I've lost another child. So where do they start from at this point in time?
I'll just take you back to where I had, I was addressing the CS and his ministry. Now we brought in the county government. In terms of finances, they ought to have set aside disaster funds at the level, at the county level, much as the government, the national government has got disaster funds set aside for such a disaster at the same time. But there was a directive that was given, I think, by the president when the floods began. And I think that time they said that you cannot keep money that you have saved for transport or education, and yet there are people who are dying and they need emergency service, and we don't expend such money. So some of this money should have been taken from projects that can wait to deal with the emergency. So if the counties have not done that, then I think it's a failure on their part. And reasonably, I think they should have sat down, and they should be sitting down, not sitting down, they should be, right now they should be running up and down, because the directive was given way back. So definitely they are supposed to, we are supposed to feel them on the ground, and it shouldn't be part of the complaint. Resettling the people who have been displaced by the floods, and providing necessary materials that they need, either for putting up their houses and also for their personal effects, the clothing, the whatever, plus the food. We're supposed to have a system that is in place where they are consistently fed and they are settled in a place where, yes, a child can come from there knowing that they'll find their parent at the specific place. And how do these kids get to school? Because if a child is schooling maybe right here in Harambee, and they have been shifted to Ruai, I think that may not make sense to the child. How would they get to school? How would they get the education continued? So I think it is time the government sit down and plan for these things, you know, broadly. Before they would have made, before they made the decisions they came up with, because the directive that was given of reopening the schools, these are some of the factors that are supposed to be considered long before. So that's what I'm saying. Who advised the president to make that kind of decision and declaration? What did they tell the president? Because they ought to have told him, we have already resettled the people who are displaced, and the children and the families that lost whatever properties they had or were swept away, we have been able to replace what is of great necessity. So these things are the ones that I'm saying the government should have advised the president accordingly, so that the decision can come out right. The county governments, let them be responsible as they ought to. Yes.
All right, so schools reopened today across the country. That is a story that we continue to keep tabs on. We'll be informing you. We've got our eyes and ears on the ground just to take a look at how the situation is. Over 1 million students are basically returning to schools for primary schools and secondary schools. Amidst a lot of challenges within the education sector, like the school capitation, there are less funds to it. The junior secondary school intern teachers who have been on a strike, they're demanding that they get those permanent and pensionable contracts. We'll be keeping tabs with that and giving all details in our subsequent bulletins. However, I'd love to switch this conversation to something else also that touches on you and you should be concerned about, and that is on the Finance Bill 2024 and the inch of it. What is in the bill? That's the question. And so we'll try to summarize it for you as much as we can. And so we're expecting a special sitting this Monday in Parliament, where the members of Parliament will be able to take a look at this bill so that they can give it a go-ahead for public participation, which is a key process in every bill that passes through the National Assembly. Public participation, what your views are. Do you support some of these recommendations, some of these tax policy measures? Are you in support? Do you not support it? Your views are very important to it. And so there's a special sitting that has been called where, they'll be able to put up a formula of how the public participation will take place. However, aside from that, we're looking at some of the taxes that have been imposed for the government to collect 323 billion shillings to cut on the deficit, include one, VAT on banking services, the banking transaction services, that includes forex services as well. We're also looking at an eco-levy which has been imposed on some of the products from between 98 shillings to 1,275 shillings. This means calculating machines, printing machines, a section of diapers will see an increase of charge. VAT on bread, that is a 16% VAT on bread. So that means the 400 gram of bread, which roughly costs about 60 shillings depending on the brand, well, that could go up to even about 70 shillings. That's the minimum we're expecting. We're also looking at the motor vehicle tax. Those who are car owners will be subjected to a motor vehicle tax. Motorcycles have also been imposed a duty of up by 10%, as well as mobile money transfer excise duty up by 5%. If I'm sending you money, you're sending me money, you're withdrawing money, the charges will change, as well as excise duty on telephone by 5%. Your internet data, the calls that you make, you're likely to see that you've bought credit and then kalash, it has ended quite fast. So Mwito, just from this projections or some of the expectations on what the government wants to collect, 323 billion shillings to cut on the deficit, of which has been the biggest gap in budgets across the various financial years. We always have a huge budget deficit. Does this fill the gap ultimately if they are to collect 323 billion?
Well, looking at what they have come up with, I'm actually seeing the people in the middle class and the lower cadre adversely affected. And they're affected by the hikes. So when the government is increasing on the tax collection so that they can reduce, they can cut down on the deficit, then I think the government is actually missing the point. Because they have touched on areas which affect Kenyans on a day-to-day activities in business. Because when you go now to the M-Pesa and the banking sector and compel a breach of contract on all banks, they'll have to cancel what we signed with the banks, that they will not expose it. I think that the government is actually, breaking the law. Now, when we talk about cutting down on, cutting down on certain expenditures, while increasing others, levels that are unbearably, unbearable to the capability of all of the taxpayer. I think it's not right, because look at the education sector. You will see that what has been allocated to them. We have various departments which are not really directly, described as under the Ministry of Education, because you will hear there's a state house, and it's called the State Department on Education, getting 131 billion. Okay, is not really under the Ministry of Education, but we also have the TSC under the Ministry of Education, 369 billion. You know, when you look at what is being allocated for, it's all going to almost 1.3 trillion. That's education alone. Okay, because TVET gets 30.4 billion, 130 billion for universities, primary gets 105, 144 for junior secondary, these are the another state department, education secondary, also gets 144 billion, 227 billion goes to primary. Why don't you just say we have allocated 900 billion or 500 billion to the Ministry of Education, because, and have all these departments under it, because when we talk about the extravagance of the government under the state corporations, we have too many state corporations, and we saw the other day that the president is planning on, cutting down on such. So if first we would go for those state corporations that are not really viable, then I think we will be cutting down on that cost. But if at the same time we have allocated money to such departments, then I think it doesn't really augur well with the taxpayer. So I strongly feel that what is to be discussed, once it's brought to public for public participation, the public is going to give their opinion, and I believe is going to advise the Parliament on what to come as a conclusive budget for 2024-2025. So I haven't really gotten a deep information about this, except say for what we are seeing put forward on dailies. But I believe that as we continue, some of us who are not mathematicians will begin to understand this a lot more better and deeper. But I know economists are able to expound on this even much better than people who are not in the economic sector, So I'm trying to say that there's a lot to it, but seeing it from a very general perspective, I think much as you'd like to cut down on the cost, and the budget is still going higher and higher, then it means the burden will be on the Kenyan taxpayers. And like I said, much of the burden in terms of tax hikes is actually affecting the middle class and the low class.
Right. And a lot of Kenyans will always ask the question on, how does it affect me? And so, the price of bread, for instance, is such a key commodity in a lot of households, even in schools for that matter, because, kids in schools will take bread, but there's a 16% VAT on that bread. Initially, there was never VAT on bread at all. And so the price goes up by 10 shillings. On motorcycles, if you look at the number of motorcycles that are just on the road, a lot of them are border riders. If the price of that motorcycle goes up to by 10 shillings, eventually it will culminate to, if I'm taking a border, then they will say, the prices are high, so to a certain location, this is the charge, which has increased. So sounds like the government, is willing to impose any tax on the expense of the common mwananchi for them to push their bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Is that the same from where you sit?
I don't think this is what they promised. They promised us when they were campaigning. And like we said, it's like there's that craze where everybody heading a certain department feels that I should say something, I should do something, I should reach to Kenyans and dig into their pockets. We should be tax collectors in one way or the other. Money should pass through our department, and that is why you see all these too many taxes that are coming up. Now, coming down to taxing of food and bread, and I believe maybe once they hit the transport system, they will have hit the farmer. Okay, so we're talking about food. It means that there's somebody who is actually losing touch with the community. We had been hit by the crisis that were as a result of the corona catastrophe. Now everything went down. things went down in terms of earnings, and the cost of living went so high, and that led to the numerous demonstrations we had on the cost of living. Of course, not in the good taste, but it was so political. But I think still, to a certain extent, you would agree that things were a bit high at that time. Now things are getting lower, and we do appreciate what the government is doing. But I think the departments which are supposed to advise the government on this, they're supposed to come out so clear. You know, it's just the same way you're seeing NTSA working like police officers. Every department feels that they should be somewhere where money is flowing, and it may not be their responsibility. Maybe theirs is to be allocated funds to execute certain services to the people. Let certain services reach out to the people, but they want to be taxmen also. Now, what you're saying is that the government, once they bring this, and I believe the public participation will not be confined to social media opinion, they will come to the ground. They should come to the ground and listen to the people, and let these reports that they will file back not be same as what they have done with the task force reports that have been done before. So whatever report they will come up with as feedback from the community, the society, then let it be effected. What I'm trying to say here is that if they touch bread, you have touched some people who are actually ailing from certain chronic diseases, and you may talk about the white bread, which every one of us is actually feeding on, but there are others who can only feed on the brown bread as a part of health, you know. So these kind of things, when you touch them, you're actually affecting people differently, you know. Touching bread, I think if they go into touching wheat, then again that will really affect us, because like I said, if they talk about transport and they make the kind of changes that are going to affect transport costs, then it means the farmers will also hike their prices. And so if there would be an alternative of something affordable, like what we see in certain areas, that they would go for mandazi instead of bread, I think these are the kind of things that that should be looked into. However, I think the government, while making this budget, of course, they would like to get things easy on the government with having adequate resources. But I think as much as they would like to amass these resources, they should feel what is in the wallet of the Kenyan, because it is from there they want to tap whatever resources they need. Right. Yeah. And you know, if you look at just the expenses in the bill, in the bill, which the executive is set to get about 2.5 trillion shillings budget to for it in this financial year. Parliament will get about 41 billion shillings. The judiciary will get about 23 billion shillings. Now for the executive, this 2.5 trillion basically goes into the cabinet secretaries, the president, the office of the president, the office of the deputy. It all falls down back as well to the wage bill, and just what can be channeled away from the wage bill if we're able to deal with corruption, if we're able to deal with ghost workers, and goes back into funding this budget deficit. This war on lowering the wage bill, are we winning it as a country? Right? I don't think, with what I'm seeing, I don't think that's what the government is doing. I'm seeing money allocated to State House. Something like, I think it's 14.6 billion. State House is run by the president, or the office of the president, or office of the presidency, as we put it nowadays. And then the president himself also, gets, State House gets 9.2 billion, while the president gets 5.4 billion allocated to his office. But all these monies will be signed by the president as money under the office of the presidency. So why allocate State House 9.2 billion and 5.4 billion for the president, and say we are cutting down on cost? Then you go into the office of the deputy president. I think it has, 4.5 billion. another creation of an office that is yet fully constitutional, the office of the Chief Cabinet Secretary, is a political seat. Is actually taking 1.5 billion shillings. That's the office of the Chief Secretary, Cabinet Secretary. Then under his same watch, he has the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which also has an allocation.
Yeah.
The extravagance of the government this year is going to be appalling, is all I can say. Is actually going to be appalling. It's shocking. Because these are just few departments of a government I'm talking about. And I know there's some increase on the money that has been given to the judiciary, money allocated to the housing because of the affordable housing project. We also have the settlement or resettlement funds, which are also set aside, and also upgrade of housing. These kind of things are there, but the government also has allocated a lot of money on it. Yet, even currently as we speak, we have issues with the affordable housing program because there's certain things that need to be looked into. There are cases in court right now of areas like Jericho, Jerusalem, which had the government and the residents and the government of Israel and the government of Kenya had a deal that after 25 years, the residents would be allocated these houses. Similar to what, like I said a few months back, happened to people who living in areas like Umoja. They owned the houses thereafter. So these are people who are clamoring for such. I think the government should move in together with the county government because the pact was there and settle such. So when you allocate the money, it means it has been set aside, but it's not going to do something. It's going to remain in certain accounts, just generating interest. And this is also another way of corruption. Let the money, let's keep the case on, but the money stays in the bank. It's just the same way the international community donors used to give Kenya money those days in the 80s. They would give them loans and then keep them in their banks and then create something that would be so hard for the government in place to implement so that the money can continue generating interest and it remains with them. Then you begin again to pay the loan with interest. Right. So this is the kind of thing that is happening, and I'm saying the government should be very honest under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, that this is not the case. We have the money allocated, but it's not working, it's not being used so that it can be in some bank somewhere, because there's some cases left and right. I think this should be cleared first, and then they can be able now to move on with that project.
Right.
Many other things that have been allocated funds, I think very few of them you will realize have been denied the usual amount. So the government is not really helping us a lot in terms of the kind of budget they're coming up with, because it seems to be rather a lot more oppressive, because we are also recuperating from the challenges at the moment. Yeah.
Right, and the main issue here has been on the public wastage of funds and just who is taking accountability. Because if you look at the reports of the Auditor General are very damning to some of these state corporations and ministries and even offices of the executive, and just how much they're spending on buying curtains, on tea and on things like that. And so at who does the buck stop with? Because we need to look at some sort of responsibility and accountability of leaders who say and mean what they say. The head of state, there was a lot of keen focus on his foreign travel, and he seemed, to say, we need to stop these travels as a nation. If you've got nothing to do out there, what are you going to do? But then later on, there's still reports coming out on just how much travel he's taken, how much this government has traveled, some of the things that they are spending the money on. And so there's been a lot of question on just the public wastage of funds. And, Kenyans say, there's a popular saying that that goes, we've no problem with paying taxes, but we need to see accountability and how these taxes are being managed. And so if a Kenyan is looking at this particular bill this morning, and is seeing 16% on VAT and motorcycles and on, you know, motor vehicle tax and mobile money and excise duty on this transfer and telephone charges. They might be thinking to themselves, if only this money was being managed and used properly, then they would be comfortable where they are.
I asked this question last week. For you to be responsible and accountable as a presenter at the EBN TV station, does that have to take the CEO or the chairman of the organization? Accountability is personal. Is a personal commitment to morality and ethics. And if you do not practice such, then you should bear the brunt. It should not be the buck stops at the CEO. The CEO is there to sack any person who is who becomes a culprit.
Should Ruto sack anyone?
He should, and that's why we're insisting. He should sack people like Machogu. Professor Machogu should have been substituted a long time ago. This is my opinion, personal opinion. He should have been, but there is an outcry out there, not only because of this time, this moment today, but he's not really proven to be really having a grip on his ministry effectively. So what we are saying is that is like what we have now with agriculture, and I know maybe we'll get into it. The Ministry of Agriculture, you say the buck stops at the minister. Yes, it stops at the minister. But what happens to those who are given responsibilities to go check bag after bag as they're being packed? Because you are allowed by any exporter, somebody whom you're dealing with, any manufacturer, please send somebody to come and confirm what we are packing for you. You are supposed to have somebody there. The minister is not the one who goes to that factory in India or that factory in Turkana to check every bag. There's somebody who has been appointed to do this responsibility. That person should be accountable. So this thing of the backstops at the top is hypocritical and is just shifting blame to a certain person, blaming the president who has given resources like now what we are seeing here. If he okays this once the parliament discusses this and approves as a budget, then the office of the president will have, the president himself will have to assent by appending his signature that this is what goes for all Kenyans in 2024, 2025. Okay? Now, if that be the case, then it means the people now, even like right now when we're talking about, hey, they should go a step further. Please allow public participation, blah, 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 blah. Let parliament be keen on this. Let state departments be honest with themselves. Let them be accountable. Let them be transparent in their day-to-day activities so that whatever they expend can go down on record. But this thing of having the whole budget as a miscellaneous budget, it's not really working. It's not really working. Yeah, because certain money was allocated for a certain responsibility. We must see the result of it.
Right.
So accountability is personal, like I said. Let the law take its course.
Right.
If a CS is found culpable, then let him face the wrath of the law, or the defense of the law, if he's innocent. And that goes for anyone, even those who are under them. So this is what I'm trying to say. Accountability is very personal, and they should be accountable as never before, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at the Auditor General's report on the Office of the Deputy President, which spent about 18.14 million shillings on curtains and furniture alone. And it came at a time when they were speaking about austerity measures and cutting on reckless spending. With this kind of report, Muito, in that particular Office of the Deputy President, who should the buck stop at? Who should take responsibility?
How many stories are actually comprise the structure that holds the office of the Vice President, Deputy President? It's not just an office. Somebody will try to make it look as though it is the rooms that were being, the room that he occupies that is being transformed. furniture for even those who are serving in those other offices, departments under the office of the deputy president. Within that building, it used to be Ajib House. Within that building, okay, along Harambee Avenue, if there is an upgrade that is to be done, then it is done wholesome. When talk about doing curtains, you've done curtains for your own sitting room, and I have an experience with this because I'm in that field. When you talk about a curtain of 3, 4, 5 meters, 2 meters window, you're talking about spending not less than 15,000. It's about between 10 and 15,000 shillings. So when you look at the whole structure, which has to be done, some of these things, carpeting also, and furniture, and these kind of things, and other upgrades that are done. I think sometimes if we talk about the office of the president, is from ground floor to the top floor.
So from what I'm getting from Mwito, is it okay to spend this amount of money on what they're spending on?
Let the people who have come up with this information tell us how far is the money covering. I've just tried to expose the size of the office of the deputy president. It's not where he sits, that chair and the desk, that room that has a boardroom. No, I'm not talking about that. It could be, because when you talk about the deputy president, the office of the deputy president has spent 18 million on curtains. You go there, do your own check, see how many, not you, let that person go there and see how many windows required, maybe the types of curtains that are done. Others who are having these, what do you call these, whatever this type of curtains, what do you call them? You know, they are not similar in cost compared to the material curtains that you do, you know, fabric material that you use on other curtains. So definitely, I don't know, they're called blinders, where they're using blinders, of course the cost will be higher. So I don't know whether this person is talking about the office of the deputy president where he sits, or is the office of the deputy president, which happens to be under him, the whole structure and all departments that operate under it, in it, that is. So let him or her come out clear with this information. Otherwise it will sound like just gossip, mere gossip.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so Mwito, we do expect that...
and on the side of accountability, that's where we as journalists are supposed to be accountable. Let's say things that we can substantiate. Yeah.
So this is 18 million is not substantiated?
I mean, when you say 18 million for the office of the deputy president... That's
a report of the Auditor General.
That's the report of the Auditor General, and I'm saying the report of the Auditor General is also advised. The person who went to the ground, what is he talking about? Is it the whole building, or is it the office that the deputy president sits in? It has only 2 windows or 3. Yeah.
All right. Now, you know, speaking of that particular office, there has been claims that it has been underfunded for quite a while, and you know, it lacks really the resources to quickly put out reports about what offices and in what years, because we're looking at 2024 and then reports are coming out of, you know, in 2021 or 2019. So if we're going to win the war against corruption and cutting on, you know, ghost workers and cutting on public wastage of funds, should this office, you know, receive clear and you know, more funding to be able to bring out reports which eventually now bring back the issue on accountability and responsibility, and even, you know, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission might come in, you know, perhaps to investigate some of these cases?
Well, I've always insisted here and elsewhere that the word corruption is too general. But the word corrupt, the actor, if we deal with the actor,
corrupt officials,
then yes, if we deal with the actor, that is the corrupt official, and using the clearer terms of a definition of the word corrupt, is a thief. If we deal with the thieves under the thieves, the laws that actually would jail a thief, we would use those laws on the corrupt people, then definitely things will change. But when you're dealing with theft, you're not sorting the issue.
All right.
It remains a story.
Hold on, let me just cut you short. I'm being informed there's a problem with your mic. So allow us to take a quick breather, but when you come back, Mwito will pick it up from there on just, you know, putting the differences between what a corrupt official is and what corruption is and why we should not generalize it. There was a time you were here and you were bold enough to say that's those are thieves. And so when we'll come back shortly, Mwito will come back to that conversation and pick it up from there. So stay with us, we'll be back shortly.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Welcome to Mshindi K Events, your one-stop destination for unforgettable celebration. At Mshindi K Events, we specialize in creating magical moments that last a lifetime. From elegant tent setups to exquisite decoration, our team of experts will turn your vision into reality. Whether it's a birthday bash, corporate event, or wedding celebration, we got you covered. We are here to make your dreams come true. Make your next event a masterpiece with Mshindi K Events. For orders and inquiries, call us today at 0722 973 649 or 0723 510 963. You can also email us at gilbertomshinde@gmail.com. Mshindi K Events, where every moment is a celebration.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Apologies about that earlier microphone setback. However, Mwito, you were speaking on corruption and you've said that's too general. And we now need to talk about corrupt officials.
Yes.
Proceed.
I'll give you an example. One day when I was working as a journalist for China Radio International, I posed this question to the former Prime Minister. By then he was the Prime Minister of the Republic, and I asked him, we have heard too many things about corruption. When are you going to hear about the corrupt? What are we doing about the corrupt? How many cases have been concluded? How many have landed in jail because of corruption? You know, once we begin to see cases getting to an end, and this is where I'm looking at a failure in the judiciary, because of the compromises that take place along the corridors of justice. I think this is something that should be dealt with. Look at the sinner, not the sin. Yeah. And as I use this as an example, that it's the sinner who commits the sin. At some point while I was in politics, political race, there was a campaign to pour alcohol from the shelves. And my question to them was, how many bottles can leave that shelf even if I sit so close to it and get into my mouth, open itself and come into me? Unless somebody contemplated from very far, budgeted for it, came for it, made the demand from the counter and got it and began to drink. So is that really the problem of the bottle or the problem of the drinker? So to speak. The one who is drinking is the one who is supposed to tame his appetite. The one who is robbing public coffers is the one who is supposed to tame his appetite, is the one who is supposed to know what belongs to him and what does not belong to him. Otherwise, possessing that which does not belong to you, rightly saying and grammatically defining that act, it means you are stealing, or that person is stealing. And that is why I use the word a thief. You see, the world is transforming, is actually trying to sugarcoat evil. The other day we were talking about homosexuals. They wanted to become gay. And when you write the word gay and guy, they're almost the same, and the gay is a male thing. So let's make it not so serious. If we talk about women misbehaving as woman to woman, let's call it lesbian. Let's use a big name that not so many people understand. The same thing, let's not call these people thieves because they themselves are thieves. So when you don't want to be caught, to walk with guilt, use another name. Even in the Christian circles, I have seen and I've heard people, some of us are not repenting sins, we are repenting errors, and mistakes. Lord, I erred. People are doing these things. Why are they using the word error? It sounds easier, nicer, softer than sin. Because sin will call for judgment. Error will call for pardon. You understand? So that is the direction the world is taking. The world becoming evil, that's how it is. Today, if you're a corrupt person, the conclusion will be, hey, but I think even if I was the one, I would have wished to have all that he has. Why? Because the world has taken time to fantasize, that opulent life and riches, wealth. So everybody is now desiring to be wealthy, regardless of how and where and through what means it comes to them. That's why people are even selling their own souls for money and wealth. That's why people are robbing even what is set aside for people who are now homeless today as we speak. There's somebody who is sitting on some money. The money has been withdrawn. It's in a certain account, making some interest. Before wakuwe wakali sana, nitakuwa nimetengeneza interest, then tutapeleka pale madhari na kule kwingine. Otherwise, these are things that were supposed to be done long time ago. I think we should be personally convicted by the standards that we set for ourselves. If we choose to be morally upright, then the conviction will be, I will not go into becoming immoral in that manner of corruption. So it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
You go to steal not because you went to steal with the devil, but you went to steal because you reason within yourself and together with the evil one and agreed, I think this is the way to go. So you go do it. And the person goes and does it. So when judgment comes and the law takes its course, the person should actually bear the brunt, as I said.
Right.
Yeah, not where the buck stops. Yeah.
Okay.
It stops at the individual.
At the individual.
That commits it.
Okay.
Because so the corruption thing, it will remain a story, no matter how much we fund the what do you call this department?
Office of the Auditor General.
Office of the Auditor General. No matter how much money you put there, if they deal with corruption, they will not sort it. But they may come up with even the culprits. But is the judiciary ready to take the matter to conclusion? So you see, it's just the way we say, the police have done the investigations, they have the proof, then the prosecutor from the police presents this evidence, and the defense on the other side, in collusion with the judiciary systems, they end up frustrating such justice.
All right.
So that's why we're saying the judiciary also has to be blamed, because when you have these economic crimes, they're taken to the judiciary. So who has been jailed? None. The cases end like this, and eventually we hear acquittal after a new government comes in. If I choose to align myself after stealing, and a new government comes in 2027, and we have been managed with our lawyers to extend the case all the way to 2027, and I become a friend to the government that wins the election, then I will be acquitted.
Okay, because the finance bill is quite a large document, and we're almost out of time. We'll not be able to cover all of it, but I hope that we've been able to give our audience, for them to understand some of the entries and what is expected of this particular bill. And this is a conversation that we'll keep on having. But Muito, in 2 minutes as we wrap it up, I want you to speak about Linturi's fate, as we expect the 11-member committee to today submit the report of the findings. They had retreated on whether or not to impeach or to save him. The Nation says there's word that he will be saved. So in 2 minutes as we wrap it up.
Well, I'd said it earlier. Excuse me. That on this case of fake fertilizers, we had a discussion here over who the buck stops at, or where the buck stops at. And we discovered that the blame is shifted to the person at the top. Yet the person at the top has assigned duties, responsibilities, and paying them salaries and allowances and commissions and whatever to ensure that whatever must be done is done, and done accordingly. Now, if they fail to do what they are assigned to do accordingly, who is to blame? Is it the CS who has offered all resources to do all that must be done in respective departments, or is it the CS who is sitting in his office waiting for you to give the feedback? He sent you to India, yes. He sent you to Switzerland, he sent you to Uganda, or wherever the fertilizer comes from, or the one in Elgeyo, is it Keyo Valley or wherever it was coming from. If you were sent to these places, you were supposed to, you actually outsourced for this. You must have had the responsibility to ensure that what you saw that was in accordance to the standards that you had set of what you needed to supply to the farmers, then definitely you should have made sure that as it leaves the factory, we have the correct consignment. So if you don't do the verification of whatever you have in your consignment, then I think the blame cannot go to the CS. It should go to the directors in various departments. The directors should blame the managers. The managers should sack the guys who are sent to go to those places to ensure that every bag, not every consignment, every bag is checked. I have an experience when I sat down with one of guys from the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, a friend of mine, and when they go out there, they always make sure that whatever is coming in, they've even gone to the labs, they test, they see it tested, they prove it, even with their own expertise and experience. They prove that this medicine is actually better than the other one. So we can substitute this with this one, you know. These are the kind of things. So definitely accountability must be there. We had the KRA, we had the KBS. If it was imported fertilizer, we had the KBS in whichever country that we are having these relations with. We have, I think, the anti-counterfeit department represented there. We have the KRA represented there. So when you come to play this game, political game in here, there is something in the bureaucratic system that is supposed to have been checked, you know, and brought to account. And that is why the leader of majority was saying, hey, we can crucify the CS, but please let everybody carry their own cross.
Yeah, and you know, interestingly, if you watched those proceedings that were happening in Parliament, we sort of went from talking about fertilizers or the fake fertilizer saga to getting so personal with, you know, what happened or what has been happening in the life of the cabinet secretary. And for a minute, it was sort of like a drama series that was happening live before our eyes over personal life with the CS. What would you say about that conduct of that particular parliamentary sitting?
Watching at what the media brought out from the coverage is not a thing that started. The provocation started from the other side about his personal life, the provocation itself, and so he spoke, you know. And what I'm trying to say is that whether he spoke about this having been provoked or he brought it out himself, I think it was not right, again, for the media to highlight that which is not correct, other than taking us to where did it emanate, what really triggered this relationship thing. Because as he was defending himself as the Minister of Agriculture, and he spoke what he spoke. But the issue of this person, as a lawyer, as a legal expert, what they do, they find a way of provoking you, and most of them are lawyers actually who sit even in the Senate and the National Assembly. So somebody would find, let me bring in this so that I can trigger his anger, you know, and you know, set him off the ground. I mean, his feet off the ground. And that is what happens when you're sitting on, we're standing at a bar where you're being, you know, interrogated by a lawyer. And it's the same thing. Let's say something that will cause the trigger, and then highlight this on the media, then hit it so hard until the audience does not see the real, the gist of the matter, and begin to see this other drama that has been created. It was just a drama created by the senators in the opposition.
Right.
But I think it had to come out like that. And so him being a lawyer, he knew how to deal with it. He defended himself and took the matter to that side. But again, the agricultural matters, I think if he never brought out the names of the people involved, then I think it is there that he will be crucified.
Right.
Yeah, but it
All
was
right.
an opportunity
Yeah.
for him
Yeah.
to say and, expose everybody else. That's why those who are in his side, Kenya Kwanza, voted him to get the opportunity to prove and justify himself.
Right.
So they wouldn't, if had they said no,
All right, Mwito, we're out of time. All right.
Now I think Mituri has actually justified himself.
Sawa sawa. Thank you very much, Mwito Mureithi, for coming in this morning to speak to us. We've really tried to delve on a couple of issues that are happening today. We're expecting that, as of now, some students have already reported in schools, and so schools are reopening countrywide today. We're also looking at the Finance Bill 2024-2025. A special sitting has been called in Parliament to start that process of public participation, where you are able to give your views on what you think about the bill. Does it favor you? Does it not? What would you want? What would you want for it to be changed? And also on Linturi, an 11-member committee set to table its report, the report of the findings concerning his impeachment. Whether or not to be saved, well, the Daily Nation says he will be saved, so it's a wait-and-see situation. So thank you very much for your feedback. I can see Emmanuel Mwita, who says he's watching. I will also have one Chibalonza who says watching. The Finance Bill 2024 is not a people's budget. It is a government-centered budget, nothing to benefit Kenyans. So we hope we can keep engaging with you, your thoughts across the day, and we'll be happy to share with your feedback as well. So we wrap it up at that point. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourselves a wonderful morning ahead.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Welcome to Mshindi K Events, your one-stop destination for unforgettable celebration. At Mshindi K Events, we specialize in creating magical moments that last a lifetime. From elegant tent setups to exquisite decoration, our team of experts will turn your vision into reality. Whether it's a birthday bash, corporate event, or wedding celebration, we got you covered. We are here to make your dreams come true. Make your next event a masterpiece with Mshindi K